I'll stand out here. Stand. Just not in front of you.
Right. Okay, welcome everybody. Thank you guys so much for coming tonight. If you don't know me, my name is Anna Reinheimer. I live on Bridge Road and I am part of Reinheimer Farms. I'm the 5th generation. And I'm so excited to have everybody out tonight. Thank you guys so much for being interested and willing to work as a community to get as much information and knowledge as we can to work on fighting these data centers. Just a couple housekeeping things before we start. There's a lot of information that's going to be put out tonight, so if you have a notes app on your phone or a notebook, definitely get that out and be ready because there's going to be a lot that they're telling us, and then we're going to have a very extensive Q&A portion, so just be ready with that. Regarding the Q&A portion, I just ask that if you guys have questions to raise your hand. If you guys have public comments, we appreciate it, but if you guys could refrain from bringing those tonight and just bringing questions and save the comments for your meetings, that would be wonderful, because we want to make sure we have enough time to answer everybody's concerns. And then lastly, we are just so thankful that St. James has been willing to give us this space, so we just ask that we're respectful of the church and the sanctity of it. And so now I would like to introduce our speakers for tonight. So we have Josephine Gingrich, and she is our Health Advocacy Outreach Coordinator at PSRPA. And so her and Matt Sharaw are going to talk, and he is the Physician for Social Responsibility Policy Program Coordinator. So I'm going to turn that over to them, and then once they're done with their presentation, I will come around with a microphone because we are going to be recording this entire meeting, so you guys can watch it back or you can share it with other people who weren't able to be here, but the microphones have little recording devices on it, so I'm going to get your questions on the recording for the video. So I will turn it over to Josephine, and thank you guys again.
Thanks so much for having me today. Welcome, everybody. Can I get hand raises if you're from Hollenbach Township? Can I get hand raises for Nescapec? Anybody from Nescapec? Welcome. Can I get anyone from Dorrance? Is there anyone here representing Dorrance? Awesome. So we're going to talk today, that's a twofold presentation. And for context on the recording, we're only recording the screen. So there's not like video recording equipment out. I'm recording the audio and the screen and we'll be posting it on YouTube and Facebook for folks who weren't able to come, so please share it. And again, if we're going a little bit too fast, just tell us to slow it down, but you'll be able to re-watch the recording for any of the information on the slides. We'll also make the slides available afterward if you want to look at the resources and the information. My portion of the presentation is going to be on data center impacts on the community, your health, and the energy use that comes with that. And then Matt Shara is going to talk about ordinances and other actions you can do to protect your communities. And I want to say right now, you have a really great shot at stopping these. So don't lose hope. You're in a really good position. You've caught these early. I love the enthusiasm I've seen. I've been to some of your township meetings, and you're really organized, so we can do this. All right, so the first thing to know is that this boom of data centers is a twofold issue. It's tied to the oil and gas infrastructure we have in our state. We have one of the largest exporters of oil and gas, specifically fracked gas, the Marcellus Shale gas. And second to Texas, we export the majority of it across the country. With the increase in these data centers, we have heard from a lot of lobbyists and private interests from the fossil fuel organizations that they want to increase fracking well pads, pipelines, petrochemical processing, and other infrastructure related to that, as well as gas-fired power plants. Next page. The other issue that you need to know is that aside from the infrastructure to have grid power to these facilities, there's also gas and diesel backup, quote unquote, turbines. These turbines are semi-sized individual modules that are considered mobile turbines because you can tow it around, but they produce a massive amount of diesel pollution or gas pollution, depending on what type of turbine. We've noticed here, this is an article about the AI data centers from Elon Musk that are in Memphis, and they have been waiting to connect to the grid and running their turbines 24/7 without permits, and it's choking out the town. For example, in Archbald, up in Lackawanna County, there are 60 data center buildings proposed for that one community, and along with that, 1,000 diesel turbines. So imagine if there's a snowstorm or some other crisis that gets the power to go out, and then all 1,000 of those kick on and choke out the valley. Next. It's estimated that by 2028, data centers from that type of pollution can contribute to 1,300 premature deaths from asthma-related issues a year. Next. Of course, the other issues that you have also been voicing a lot of concerns about are the direct impacts from the presence of these data centers. So that's the noise pollution, that's the light pollution, that's 24/7 noise and construction trucks. You have the issues of drilling from fracking well pads. You have the issues of the radiation from frack waste. You also have the uncertainty on what happens to your water supply from these data centers, because not only will they be using potable water, but likely polluting that water source as well. Next. So now we're going to talk about the energy production piece. Next. This is a picture of Lackawanna County's, I call it a dystopian spaceship. But this is the Lackawanna Energy Center, and this gas-fired power plant causes particulate matter, nitrogen oxides, sulfur oxides, which are called NOx and SOx, and these types of pollutions contribute to a wide variety of health issues. Next. That include respiratory issues, like I mentioned, cardiovascular issues. You can have trouble with your heart. You can have trouble with your brain, neurological conditions from this. Of course, there's the cancer risks. There's a lot of rare cancers, and if you want to learn more about that side of things, we have our cards and information up here on cancer tracking and cancer clusters across the state. There's also the risk to adverse birth outcomes, low birth weight, preterm births, and it's not on here, but risk of SIDS and other impacts to that. Next. Here's another list of those, what I said, which were called VOCs, NOx, and SOx, the most common pollutions that come out of these facilities, and which types of health impacts are from those types of pollutants. Next. Now we're going to talk about water impacts really quick. So the main thing to know about this is that the data centers of old that are around us and used, that we need for our cell phones and for our internet, are nothing like these hyperscale data centers proposed across the country. There's a little data center in Wilkes-Barre right in the town, and it's a company that uses provides Wi-Fi and cell phone service to the community there, but they also have their office building. It's innocuous, it's not noisy, you don't even know it's there. Those are the types of data centers that supply us with our day-to-day things that we use and need. The water consumption from AI is 2 to 4 times anything for the rest of the internet. Next. Data centers need potable water. They want your drinking water. They don't like river water that's not treated. They don't like wastewater because it degrades their equipment, because the whole point of all the water that they use is to cool their computer servers. Next. They're within the top 10 consuming industrial commercial industries for water in the country, but what you'll notice here is the piece in red is what the data centers use on site. That's them taking your well water. The rest of this is from the electricity generation. So this is from the turbines, the power plants, and then the fracking related to extraction to get that power to the power plants. Next. Oh, and one other thing is a 100-word email written by ChatGPT uses a whole bottle of water. And then this is another example of the indirect water usage. Electric power sector in 2020 used 47.5 trillion gallons of water. Next. I alluded to this a little bit. Next. But this stems from the AI boom. AI is a term for artificial intelligence, which conflates several technologies, but the main two that you need to know about are terms generative AI and large language models. Those are things like AI, quote unquote, art, and ChatGPT, and a whole bunch of surveillance and algorithmic technologies behind that. Most Americans don't think AI will improve your life. We had a very steady, very calm, almost level power usage from data centers until this AI boom exploded. Because as the data centers for just our everyday internet increased, efficiency of our electricity also increased. So we didn't see this issue until these 200 times energy sucking computer algorithms. AI is poised to drive potentially 160% increase in data center power demand. This is not yours, this is the billionaires' tech that they want to use to make money. It doesn't benefit us. And if you hear folks saying, well, we need these data centers somewhere, no, we don't. They don't benefit us. And don't let them tell you it has to go in your community. Don't let them say it has to go in someone else's community. We don't need these. Next. A couple of risks just from AI itself. The job loss related to automation. Deep fakes, which is a term for when they put someone's face that's on some fake video, but it's a real person's face. Privacy violations, like I mentioned, the surveillance issues. Copyright infringement, which you've probably heard about with all of the generative art images. Internet pollution, there's evidence that the AI chokes itself when it learns from its own generated items, and so then you just get what's called AI slop. That's what this John Oliver clip was about. AI slop is a term for things like your everyday Etsy, for, I'm trying to think of other websites that I've seen it really bad on. Facebook is really bad. Kickstarter, everything is just, you can't even look up a recipe without getting an AI generated badly made soup. Next. What can we do about this? I'm going to turn it over to Matt to talk a little bit about ordinances, and then we'll also answer your questions on any other misconceptions that might be out there or misinformation around these data centers and why people say we need them or where they're going, and then answer your questions about ordinances. So think about questions for me, save them to the end, and like Anna said, we'll be handing the mic around. Go ahead, Matt.
Thank you, Josephine. I'm Matt Shara, Policy and Program Coordinator for PSRPA. I will preface by saying I am not a lawyer, so we'll just get that out there. But I do have policy experience. I served as mayor of Monessen, PA in Westmoreland County for 4 years, so I have some ordinance experience, and hopefully what I have for you today will help. So some of this information you probably already know, so I'm going to go through this fairly quickly. If you need me to slow down, just motion. An ordinance is a local law. It's the rule book. It's passed by your council, whether you're a borough, township, city. Most of it works in the same way. It has the force of law within your city's or community's borders and applies to residents, businesses, and property owners. It could create rules and penalties. Think when your grass is too high and you get a citation because you didn't cut your grass. That's, basic. Next. A resolution is different. That is more of an official statement. So I know like there's been talk from some communities about, well, if we can't get an ordinance, can we get a resolution passed? Will that do anything? It doesn't have the effect of law. It just says we officially dislike this thing, which is useful, but again, not law. Next. And again, in general, ordinances are drafted and passed at public meetings. There's usually two readings. So they'll introduce it with a motion and a second. They'll vote on it, then they'll advertise it, and then that's when you, the community, could come in, comment, voice your opinions on it. And then at the second meeting, the council can either vote to change whatever they propose, or they could pass it as written. And then, of course, you can amend ordinances later if they don't suit your needs. So here's where there, I think, has been some confusion, and I know you're all deep in this zoning ordinance matter. So zoning ordinances are different from other types of ordinances. Zoning is governed by the PA Municipalities Planning Code, the MPC. It's very detailed in the weeds. Essentially, it's like, you know, you can put this here and this here and this here. You have your separate buckets. It is heavily controlled by the state, and there are a lot of things that you can and cannot do with zoning. So zoning cannot conflict with state or federal law. It cannot be discriminatory, or even perceived to be discriminatory. It cannot completely prohibit a land use, which could be unfortunate or fortunate depending on what side you're on. And then certain industries like oil and gas are heavily shaped by state law, and they are exempted by local law. And then a curative amendment, some of you may know this as well. That's when someone like a developer or a landowner, they challenge the zoning law because they say that it is discriminatory against a particular industry or use. And so they can challenge that. It could go to court, or they can force the municipality to change that zoning law. So on the other side, we have quality of life ordinances, and those are the standard ordinances that you all would think of when you think of an ordinance. Again, this is like your neighbor's grass is too high and they get cited, or your front porch roof is broken and you need to fix it, and the code officer comes and gives you a little citation. So quality of life ordinances can be passed by your local municipality, whether you're a city, township, borough. Municipalities have police powers within Pennsylvania to protect your public health, welfare, safety. This is their job. This is why we have local elected officials, to protect the general welfare of a community. Next. So some differences between zoning ordinances and quality of life ordinances. Again, zoning, heavily governed by the state, by the MPC, focused on land use, formal process, zoning hearing board gets involved, or even courts get involved. So the question for a zoning issue, can a warehouse be built in a residential district? And then that's decided under the MPC. For a quality of life ordinance, again, heavily under the municipal codes, your local laws. It's focused on health and safety, and you can adopt these as general ordinances, and you can enforce them through the municipal building, through your code officer. And so this is the question, is the warehouse that's here causing noise or excessive dust? And then that's addressed through the ordinance, where you could then cite them or force them to change. Or if they haven't already built a facility, you're setting up the guidelines for saying, if you want to be here, this is what you have to do. So here's how I think quality of life ordinances can help. So they regulate operational impacts. So you can set noise levels, maximum noise levels. So if you are living near something and you have truck traffic, you can regulate that. You can regulate hours for the portable generator testing, like Josephine mentioned earlier, light pollution. You could require that trees be planted around something to minimize light pollution, dust control, any other kind of nuisance or emissions. And then this protects your sleep, your respiratory health, mental health, property values, all of those things. And these are not just about data centers. These are across the board. So the thing with these kinds of ordinances, you cannot target one specific industry because that would be discriminatory and that's how you get sued. But if you just across the board say, if you have a business and industry, what have you here, you can't make noise after 10 p.m. or you can't have an excessive amount of dust in a residential neighborhood. It's just really setting the standard for what you as a community expect from everything that's around you. So again, legal boundaries, you cannot ban a legal use outright, but you can set standards for what you want. And then if that particular industry does not want to follow those standards, then maybe it will not come here. So it has to be reasonable and enforceable though. So it has to be based in law and it has to be based in like what the community wants, input, and the landscape of the community and that sort of thing. So again, you can say you can only test generators during business hours. You have to shield light pollution. You have to have air filtration. It has to be so far from residences or so far from the road or what have you. There's lots of approaches that you can take with these. And you can also say, we want a community benefits agreement. We want, if you're coming here, we want to negotiate what is in it for us. Are we getting health benefits from this? Are we getting land use benefits from this? Are you paying for our fire department to come out and check to make sure there's no issues? Those are all questions that you can have with these kinds of ordinances as well. So again, they set the boundaries for the municipality, for all industries evenly. So they say, if you're going to develop here, these are our expectations, and you have to follow them. Otherwise, you can't come here. It's like a business agreement. It works for every other type of industry. It's standard business practice, as I'm sure you all know. Just making sure I don't miss anything. Okay. So you're all very involved already. You're here in the middle of the week. Fighting this fight. So I do give you all kudos for being so well organized. And I'm sure you know most of this, but just to reiterate, keep attending your meetings. The fact that you all heard about this in the zoning process is important because most municipalities, most communities don't catch this when you guys did. Pay attention to the published notices that your township, your municipalities put out there. Request public documents through right to know requests or simply just by asking if you have a good working relationship with the people that work in your municipal buildings. And then keep sharing that information with each other. You're all sharing it on Facebook, texting it to each other, however you communicate. That's super important. And then, keep asking your supervisors questions. If you're providing any kind of testimony, make sure you keep it succinct, kind of coordinate with each other even, like maybe one person asks a distance question and one person asks a pollution question. Really plan out like who's going to ask what, try not to repeat anything and keep it succinct and professional. And then if you really want to get involved, run for your local office positions or get appointed to local boards and, just stay informed and keep each other informed. And that's all I have.
Before we open it to Q&A, I do want to say that something you all can do right now is call your senators and tell them to co-sign and support the 3-year moratorium on data centers that Senator Katie Muth has proposed. We want to put a pause on data centers to give communities time to catch up and put the ordinances in place that they need to protect them. And then at the county level, Luzerne County right now is considering a zoning ordinance countywide for data centers. I went to their last planning commission meeting and heard one of their earlier drafts. We offered them some suggestions. There will be another draft that we're waiting. You can call your county commissioners and tell them, I want 2,500 foot setbacks for data centers. You can say, I want, and we can provide you with some examples. There's actually a policy brief sitting out, which I'll let you talk about in a second. But you can say, I want your zoning ordinance to say this about decibel levels for data centers, because it's a data center specific ordinance that would apply county-wide. You want to talk about the...
Yeah, so on the table as you come in where the signs are, there are 2 handouts. One's on just information about data centers. One is a policy brief about local ordinance, the local ordinance that I'm talking about that we actually have a template for, but also that could apply to the ordinance that Luzerne County is drafting. There's some bullet points in there that you could pull out of there and tell them, we like this, we want this at the county level. And then of course, we can always provide that information to you. We can email it to you. My cards are up here on this table, or just flag me down before you leave.
Yeah, we have a newsletter sign up, so you can sign up for that if you're interested. And if you want help with what kind of testimony you should say at your next township meetings, you can email us and we'll help you draft it. If you're like, this is my concern and I want to figure out how to say it with a recommendation to encourage the township supervisors to take action on this and take us seriously, and we can help draft that for you. The other thing I would suggest is writing letters to the editor in your local papers and use the information that you can to fight the misinformation out there online about data centers, about AI, and about these coming into the community. All right, I think we're ready for questions. So raise your hand and Anna will pass the mic around to folks.
Okay, so my name is Jeremy Betzfooter. I have 2 questions, but I just wanted to say, thank you for stating that these are different than regular data centers, because there's a lot of confusion about that, and these just absolutely are not the same thing. But I have a question for you, Josephine, and that is, I see in the ordinance and some of the other stuff, we talk about low-level vibrations impacting people. Are you talking about infrasound there? The sound that's outside the level of human hearing. And there's new research, I just watched a video about it, where there's a guy trying to get a whole paper about it, and it's sound that you can't hear, but it actually is causing dizziness and nausea,
Yes,
and all sorts of stuff.
we are, and there's 2 types of decibels in the example we have, right, Matt?
Yeah, DBC and DBA, I think, are the 2 types. I forget which is which, but one is what we can hear, and then one is what you can't hear, those low-lying vibrations that could cause you to stay up at night or get dizzy or have other mental health or even just general health issues.
Impact the animals.
Yep.
In Virginia, in Data Center Alley, community members have talked about how they're sleeping in their basements to try and get away from the noise.
And I just wanted to add to, you brought up animals. If you're sensing or seeing that your animals are acting strange, chances are it usually affects animals first.
And kids.
And kids. So if you're noticing weird patterns with your children or your animals, that should be a red flag that something's up.
And then the second question is actually an ordinance-related question.
Okay.
So I know that there are counties that can say, you can be a dry county, right? So you can have a restaurant, but you can't serve alcohol. So I know you can't be exclusionary and be hey, you can't have a data center in the area, but could you say you can't have a hyperscale data center here and limit the size and the energy requirements and things like that? It seems comparable to me, but...
So that's where exclusionary zoning gets in. My gut, again, not a lawyer. I would say that you could probably put limits on locally on specifications with like a particular municipality.
Like height.
Like height or emissions and that sort of thing. I don't think you could outright say no, like even if it's just one specific type. And then I think that that's probably going to be the fight in Harrisburg too. They're probably going to say, well, we can't have exclusionary zoning, so we can't do that. The state can do that. So that's where you all come in to tell Harrisburg what to do.
Thank you.
Hi, we're actually from Cunningham Township.
Oh, okay, welcome.
We're right at the bottom of.
I'm sorry I didn't name that one at the beginning.
Yeah. We're right at the bottom of, Council Cup, so it'd be right over this. So being in Cunningham Township, we don't have a zoning board. And, we were aware of the zoning, meeting that was held for Luzerne County. My question is just more clarification. You're saying that that's a county-wide, but the information that's been put out was that it was just for any of the boroughs or townships that don't have their own zoning, so it wouldn't affect you.
So, yeah, I will need to get clarification on that. So I know like the Luzerne County board is like looking at it countywide, but I do remember like reading something about that.
It is just for the
It just, so, okay. So thank you for that. So yeah, for the townships that don't have zoning boards already.
I actually had two questions, completely unrelated to each other. But one was about past practice. Like I know Hollenbeck Township, quite a long time ago now, had denied a request for a motorcycle track, had denied a request for a juvenile detention center. And those things seem way less. Like right now, I take a motorcycle track around like happily. Yeah, I have a motorcycle. Enjoying them. So like. I feel this past practice, like, play a role in ordinance, or do we already have an ordinance that possibly is including, like, quality of life, things we were talking about?
So I did a little research. I couldn't find one. So if any of you know that there's one on the books, please let me know. But I couldn't find anything, so I don't think you have a quality of life ordinance. You might have like some sort of general nuisance ordinance, because a lot of communities have those, but they're not usually very in-depth. So for things like this, the more in-depth, the better. You don't want to create legal loopholes. You want to have ordinances in place that clearly define what the intent is, because that minimizes the township getting sued. It minimizes things being misconstrued. So I would say if there is one in place, it's probably not that in-depth anyway, but I don't think there's one.
My other comment was you were talking about the nitrogen and sulfur oxides. As gases, like just as gases, they're very dangerous to inhale, to have skin contact with. But I also wanted to comment about when they combine in the clouds with water, acid rain. Like, look, we are an agricultural community here. And the impacts are not going to be just outside a data center. It's going to be where those clouds travel, and it's going to change your grass. It's going to change our hay fields. It's going to change. And we're already fighting a fight of very acidic soil in Pennsylvania. And if you look at any of these regions, industrial regions that are prone to those pollutants, they have tons of acid rain, and all the area around them is impermeable. So I think it spans way farther. I don't know if you guys know anything about that.
Well, what I'll first say is something to stress to your townships and boroughs and to keep in mind is that you're going to have immediate hollow farms and environmental impacts from these data centers and the related fossil fuel infrastructure, although a lot of you folks are dealing with nuclear, so that's a whole separate thing, and we can talk about that too. But you'll have immediate impacts, and then you're going to have chronic long-term impacts, which like that, and acid rain is a good example of it, and just additional climate disturbances and impacts to your weather that will be from that pollution, as well as, like I mentioned, cancers or something that are going to show up later in life.
And to add to that too, so it's an economic issue for you. Like obviously you all live in the country for a reason. If you wanted this development, you could live in the city and breathe all of that air. So it's just, it's a ripple effect, and that's, I think, what all of you need to stress, is it's your quality of life.
And I'll add one more quick comment to that, sorry, and then, yeah, think about, raise your hand if you have another question, Anna can get you the mic. Thank you so much for doing that, Anna. We also don't want to send this data center to an already polluted community, because we don't need them at all. That's the important part. It's not a not in my backyard fight, it's a not on planet Earth fight. We don't need these data centers, period. And so if you manage to defeat this data center, but your next door community is struggling with one, share some tips and tricks with them, because we want to be able to unite as larger and larger units of people to oppose these across the board. Other questions?
Yeah, I'm a hunter. I go hunting. So if this gets built in this area, okay, they have very high security. So anybody that's in the adjacent woods with a gun and the security sees them, I mean, are they going to start shooting?
Ooh, I don't know how to speak to the corporation security, but when there's upcoming hearings, like DEP's held hearings with companies, that's a great question to ask the corporations. You're also not going to have as many deer because they're going to be chased away by that horrible noise.
And the light.
The light pollution. So that would ruin your hunting and also risk your life.
Well, that was going to be my next question. And is there any kind of studies to back this up?
Well, one of our colleagues is doing some research on deer, actually, and the impacts from not data centers specifically, but fracking and related noise and stuff from that. I don't know if there's any others.
The study's still happening, but she's looking at roadkill deer and basically analyzing them for like different chemicals and things when they're like known to be in the area of industrial activity, because that all picks up in the deer.
And then in the meat.
Yeah, yeah. So we don't have any information on it yet because the study's still happening, but we're looking at it for sure.
We do have across the state air monitors on a website called Purple Air. You can look this up, and it's open for anyone to take a look at, and you can check your air quality. And if folks are interested in getting one in your areas here and you don't see one on the map, we can install one for you. You can just email us and reach out, because it really helps to get a baseline, because then you can point to a pollution source and you say, my air was good last year and now it's not, and here's what changed. So getting air monitors installed now can be helpful in case some of these do break through or start to be built.
Yeah, and just a little more on the air monitor too. They're free. We will coordinate with you. I have one, for example, on my deck. It's hooked up to my Wi-Fi. It's just a little tiny thing. It has a little light on it. Like, it's very non-disruptive. Just to keep tabs on what's going on in the air.
Could I use your mic a second? Good
Don't
evening,
blind
everyone.
yourself.
I'm Ron Seeley. One of our main concerns here is our well depth in our water supply. I've been starting to get people knocking on doors, but this is a lot better way. I have a notebook here. I'm going to start handing out, and please pass it down through the whole thing. Write your name, address, and your well depth on it, please.
Your well depth, if you know it.
Okay, if you don't know it, that's fine also, but if you do, please put it in this information for this notebook, please.
And also, if you have more than one well, a lot of the farms have a house well and one well.
That's
The
a
number
great.
of
Great
wells,
crowdsourcing.
you know the
Yes.
depth. Okay.
Yeah, that's great. Thank you.
So I got one more question for you. Related back to the wildlife, okay, you said that wildlife is not going to want to be in that area. Okay, this is a farming community, the same with horses, the same with cows. I mean, there's a farmer that's going to have his cows a couple thousand feet from here. So basically he's raising cows, selling meat. So what's that going to end chickens also? So what's this going to do to them? I mean, that's how they basically live.
So what I can speak to is you would probably see it presenting as stress in the animals, laying less milk, for example, maybe less like lower health outcomes and poor growth in the animals. Depending on how long these animals are being raised for, you might even see premature deaths. But yeah, stress will impact the least important body systems in an animal first. So for example, if a chicken's really stressed, it's gonna stop laying because that can go, so it can like get through the harsh crisis that it's experiencing before it goes back to laying. So yeah, you might see even shorter laying seasons, for example.
Okay, one more question. I talked to another farmer in the area. He raises apples.
Okay.
That's his living. It's also a generational thing with him. He has more money in this than any of us do. What's going to happen to his apple crops?
That is an it depends answer, because it depends on what type of air pollution you end up with what type of data center and what type of electricity powering it. Because like the acid rain question, that would negatively impact the crops, but it could also be the pollutants that go into the air, go into your food, and you eat it and you don't even realize it. Just like when you're trying to avoid pesticides by washing your produce, it's a lot harder if the plant's taking it in and then putting it out in the fruit.
Well, he also
What about pollination?
That's the aspect. The pollinating bees, perhaps at Heller Orchard, right at the bottom of where this data center would be.
That's a great question. I'm gonna get back to you on that because I actually know a bee researcher in Michigan, and I'll ask them and see if they have any information on pollinators in data centers.
I would assume though that the noise vibration would also impact the bees. So like this, all of the aspects of data centers and what they put out is going to impact every type of animal, every type of agricultural aspect. Like I think that's the point that all of you need to make, is that this is going to negatively affect your livelihood in every way. Like I think that we could sit here and think of like, well, what about the bees and what about these animals and this produce, and like there's always going to be like a correlation, I think. But we can provide specifics if you all have any data needs. We can do some digging for you for sure.
I just had a quick question. Thank you. Sorry. I know you mentioned the must-run data center in Memphis, right?
Yes.
I know preferably, I can't say AI.
We can't hear you.
Oh, sorry.
Something's wrong there.
Sorry, I know preferably you wouldn't want them anywhere. Are there other well-known data centers that popped up in rural places? I'm sure they are, but I'm trying to do research, and so I wonder if we can get in touch with those communities and see how it's impacted them, whether they've come years.
Sure. Yeah, so Arizona would be a great place to look, Tucson. Texas has a lot of them, and unfortunately for the folks in Texas, they don't get to regulate it at the state level or at the local level, and the state can just say data center, data center, data center.
Yeah, 'cause they have like 450 years.
Yeah. So and then and a lot of them are in rural places, and then Virginia is a mixed bag. Virginia is known as Data Center Alley. It's been the fastest growing. I think they have 600 proposed right now. That is related to the hookup of the interconnection there for the Wi-Fi and the government services in DC. So that's why it's appealing to data center developers. We can get you in touch with folks organizing against them there, and that's a lot of residential communities. I don't know how many are rural, but I'm sure that there are some.
I'm very sorry. I said we should do public comments and watch the time and everything. I just wanted to share that. I was in contact with a former, my brother-in-law used to work with the EPA, and I know they use AI to make a lot of art and writing, but I think they're starting to use AI as surveillance. So private text between my brother-in-law and myself will just cut off mid-conversation for about 3-4 days. I just wanted to share that with you all because it's very unusual, especially because we're probably all doing our own independent research and communicating with other people. So uncomfortable. So I sort of bring that up to you guys.
Thanks.
Sorry, you did. No, thank you.
Here we have a question over here.
I'm gonna go over there.
Watching the.
I don't want this to shut off because
Oh.
when it
I was wondering, do you know of any townships that were able to successfully place a moratorium while they're getting their ordinances together, or like?
Okay, I can sort of speak to that, but I will punt it to
Could you
Matt
repeat
after.
that question?
Yeah, I'll repeat the question. So her question was about, can you have a moratorium at a local level? So we've talked about the state moratorium situation that we're pushing for, but can you do a moratorium on data center at a local level while you get an ordinance in place? And the answer is probably not in Pennsylvania because it's not, it was never officially put in the MPC, is that right, Matt?
Yeah, so I'm 90% sure that you can't. However, I mean, if a community wants to try and then get sued, you might create court precedent.
Yeah.
So that could be interesting.
Be a trailblazer.
Yeah, but as of right now, I don't think you technically can. So, do you? Yeah, do you?
Did you have a follow-up?
We were actually, like, we consulted with a lawyer.
Hold it right up to your...
Yeah, you know, we just had a pro bono lawyer. today,
Oh, okay.
and
Good.
They said that we could, like, moratoriums aren't illegal.
Okay.
Okay. Well,
Specifically,
they're the lawyers, so I would go with that
Just
answer.
saying, so,
Yeah, we've had conflicting answers on that when we've asked for Pennsylvania because the law finagling.
Did you have anything on that?
So I just wanted to add
Okay.
what that gentleman just said, what you guys were talking about, because up in Sugarloaf, we were already through this whole thing.
Okay.
So the answer to the first person's question is yes. You can call it a moratorium if you want. What it really is, it's a municipal curative amendment. So what that means is a municipality would have to recognize their deficiency in their zoning ordinance, right? And then they enact their own curative amendment. That gives them 180 days or 6 months without any outside interference. No developer, no landowner can go and put a curative amendment on that same type of thing. Unfortunately, in Hollenbeck, in Sugarloaf as well, the horse is already out of the barn.
Right.
You've already been hit with the curative amendment from landowners here in Hollenbeck. So that option's kind of not there for Hollenbeck anymore. Unless you can find some kind of technicality or something that they did wrong.
That kicks out theirs.
Right.
And then put your own
And
in
it's probably a
place.
pretty good idea to get some lawyers and try to tie it up in court for a while.
Mhm.
Right? But that's, so yeah, you
Thank
can
you.
go work with it.
Yeah, and what you said is very helpful for other communities if that comes down the pike.
Yeah, I don't know, just don't really affect the safety of this. The question is, where they're buying the property, there's township roads going through there. When they go to build, what happens with the township road, because they gotta come off the county road. So how does the township work through them roads if they bought all that property? They could shut that road off, correct?
So if it's a public right-of-way, I mean, theoretically, and like the township would control those roads. And then I think that the other question too is in this whole process is you as residents should be asking who's going to maintain those roads too when heavy truck traffic starts to destroy them, because that's also going to happen.
Can the developer
Oh.
cut that road off and put turnarounds, turnarounds?
The municipality would have to approve it. If it's a township road, they would have to pass an ordinance to either vacate the road or somehow like grant some sort of permission, I would think. They can't just do it. And then if they did, that would be a problem. Like you guys could fight that.
Because on the one side of the property, it's a steep hill. And if they can only come up that way, fire truck cannot make that circle to come up that big hill to make up there.
And that's another valid question or valid comment to make in this. how is the fire response going to be? Can the fire department feasibly make it there safely? Can they afford to actually do their duty if there's a major fire at the data center? And who's compensating for equipment if equipment's lost or something? Those are all things that I would bring up as well. One right there.
So I'm going to look past the claim you repeatedly made that AI has no use and data centers have no use, because that's just patently false and disingenuous. But a follow-up question does arise. And that is, if your attempts to stand in the way of zoning or by use of local ordinances prohibiting their expansion or use, what do you say to the probability that the federal executive, that is, will evoke the Defense Production Act and label this an issue of national security?
We have seen that from the federal side on coal-fired power plants and gas-fired power plants, right? Where they claim, for example, Eddystone it's a national security risk to shut this down, so we're going to extend the life of this power plant, even though it's only operating 1% out of the entire year. So it is potentially an issue, but it would be one that would likely get tied up in courts at higher levels. And with the AI piece, it is a bubble, right? There's all of this investment and kind of we're seeing predatory speculation by developers. So the longer we can delay this, the more likely that this bubble will burst because the technology is changing. And so that can also impact how, for example, other countries use different AI tools, or the large language models become obsolete because small language models are more efficient. That's going to strand these data center assets as well. And then you're left with a big empty warehouse. And what are those warehouses going to get turned into? That's a question you would also want to have in your ordinances to protect your communities, because you don't want them to get converted into something else that could harm the community.
Or just remain abandoned too.
Yeah.
Can I just state something kind of adding to what you said about
Sure.
the AI data centers? So I think what you're kind of getting at is that both the gentleman, you said that there is a use for AI, so there are practical uses for AI. Like, it can provide benefits to things like medical research and things like that. But that type of research can be run on servers in the basement of a university. We don't need gigantic data centers to do this research. So yes, there is practical uses of data and AI, and they can benefit society. We just don't need to build, gigawatt data centers to do it.
Yeah, if folks have more specific AI-related questions, I am in touch with an AI researcher in Maryland who's sort of talking about the different types of models and what's going to become of them. And if folks have specific questions, they can email us and we can pass them on to him and get you very accurate answers from an AI researcher.
Oh, sorry, go.
I have a question about safety for all the residents. Okay, if there's some kind of we've already had tornadoes in this area, okay? So they're saying that right now our township has the basically right fire equipment to supply this. Okay, so if a fire starts up there because of a tornado and also damages other people's house and the fire company is dispatched up there, okay, they're fighting something up there. It's taking away from the safety of the residents that the fire company is originally supposed to, you know what I mean, represent or basically control their health. You know what I mean?
Correct, and it puts the volunteer fire crews at risk as well for some facility that sometimes you can require companies to have their own fire suppression services, but we've seen with things like the shell cracker plant that they're not adequate, and then it still continues to put the community at risk when there's accidents.
I have two questions. Off the top of your head, or if it's something you can provide us, do you have a comprehensive list of things that general residents and also farmers can test for now, get that good baseline?
Yes, that's what you have out the
So
two.
that out there is just a watchdog
Oh,
paper,
okay.
but we do. So please get in touch. If you could just grab a card or something, shoot me an email. I could send one back to you because we also have a sheet where you could ask about your own health as well. So if you're seeing weird things happening with your health, you can go to your doctor and say, hey, I think I was near X, like this industry or whatever. Please test for XYZ. So I believe we have one for that as well. So I'll pass my card. I'll make sure my card gets back to you, and let's chat.
Yeah, out there, sorry, we have 3 papers and you're welcome to take them home. We have a policy brief that Matt wrote about his example ordinances, and you can use that draft language and just plug and play right into your codes. And then we have a watchdog paper on how to like keep tabs on various environmental health incidents that, like he said, might ping your spidey senses. And then finally, there's a data center fact sheet out there. And on the back side is about ordinances. Who had, somebody else? Yeah.
Hi, my name is Denise Moyer, and I live on Maple Road, right where the proposed data center is going to be. It comes about. I have a couple questions. First of all, just so everybody knows, if you're probably within, I don't know, you would know this better than me, but if they do come in, they will be blasting. So right now, we all need to be checking and taking pictures of our inside, outside foundation, checking your water right now, and also check you have radon testing done. We've done that repeatedly over the last 10 years. And right now we're fine, but that's something everybody in the township really needs to be focused on to do, because that's important. Because if they do last, then there's people that have had foundations building new homes that have had their wells, just stop dead. There's nothing there because of drilling down, and they'll drill deep. So that's, I don't know if you want to comment.
Yeah, I have one other thing. So as much baseline testing as we can get done, definitely do it. Even if it's just keeping a journal of various things that you've tested and keeping note of the impacts that you have on your animals and your crops. Also test your water for PFAS if you can, which is short for polyfluoral something plastic chemicals.
I never remember the whole thing.
I know. They're also called colloquially forever chemicals. It's think Teflon. And they're cancer causing. There are also impacts on birth defects and low birth weight and other bad birth outcomes and infertility issues. And there's a risk from contamination from the data center because of what they're cooling and the equipment that they have, which contains PFAS and microplastics, that it could impact your water supply. So testing to just make sure you don't have PFAS now. And then if one of these gets built, test it after.
So, it's under the assumption that we keep the one in Hollenbeck Township, but realizing that the one across the river in Salem Township is happening.
Yeah.
It's still, I think, to do our baseline testing for all of our residents in farms here and everything, but is there a precedent for the residents of one township band together and trying to force another township into restricting an industry?
Because your ordinances can impact that a little bit, right? Where you can penalize somebody if it's trespassing across.
So no, municipalities can't do that.
Okay.
But so we know pollution does not know borders. So what happens to your neighbors is going to happen to you, and vice versa. There is a bill in Harrisburg right now that would force municipalities. So like, let's say there's a data center being built here, it would require the consent of the surrounding municipalities, and there'd have to be a study on how it would impact all of them too. I don't know where, I think that bill's still in committee, and I could give some information on that, but I don't think municipalities can do it. But all of you banding together as community members and talking to each other in your different communities is very important. I'll pull it up for you. Let me dig.
What are the arguments on the other side going to be that it's a benefit to our township?
So one of the ones will be tax income, but the issue is twofold. You're going to pay for it now and pay for it later. So there are a lot of tax breaks already in place, and one of the reasons data centers are being attracted to Pennsylvania, I just saw with the announcement of the second annual data center summit or whatever in Pittsburgh, they said that Pennsylvania is 4th in the country for data center proposals. So Texas, Virginia, somebody else in Pennsylvania are all right up there in across the state, massive data center proposals. The reason they're coming here is a few things. It's our electricity and it's our fossil fuel production, but it's also a tax break that was put in place in 2021 that removes income tax on all of their computer equipment. So they don't have to pay for that. The other thing is because electric bills are across ratepayers, new infrastructure to connect these large loads to the grid will impact your electricity bills. If you look at your electric bill, usually you see a supply bill for like 70, 80% of it, and then 20 or 30% of it is the distribution charges and stuff. Some of that bill is just for the additional infrastructure repairs and installations and like the insane transmission lines they're trying to build. They're going to try to bill you for that. So you're going to pay for it in your electric bills, and you're also going to pay for it in your taxes because they'll get tax exemptions in many cases. So one of the arguments is that, oh, it'll be a benefit, it'll give more money to our schools and all of that, but it's really just not in the money. And there was an article that came out, I will see if I can find it. I might even have it up, but I will take a look, that shows that millions annually will be lost to the state because of the tax relief or tax haven that it would be for data centers to come here.
Like Denise has spoken about getting your water tested and all the testing before stuff happens. If they get to move in and build these things, something happens, whatever your water, whatever. How do us, the public, go about costing us money or whatever to protect us, or for them to pay for it, or whatever?
Yeah, so this is also something we can help with. So you can file what's called a complaint with the Department of Environmental Protection, and you can say, my water was poisoned and these are the culprits, and the complaint will start a cascade where, especially if we help you, we'll badger the DEP and make them come out and investigate it, and then they will try and find the source of the contamination and then either find the company, and it's not, the perfect solution or always successful, but hassling the DEP with complaint after complaint can sometimes get them to, like with the Shell cracker plant out in Beaver County, they were fined for leaking benzene into the water, which is a carcinogen, and poisoning the water supply.
Okay, but who originally pays for it till they make a settlement?
Well, yeah, you would originally pay for it. It's absolutely, that's your answer for sure. You had one here? I have one right here.
Okay. For those who have been firefighters in our community, I'm not so sure this has been addressed at our meetings, but my question is, number one, as a volunteer fire company, the equipment, look at the equipment. We don't have the equipment that you would need to fight these fires, do we? If there would be, not just a fire, but a battery leak, a chemical leak, well, whatever. Do we have the capability to anybody know that? And then you have to look at, should they, and this is something that certainly needs to be addressed to the Attorney Karpovich's side. Will these places, the data centers, have their own fire brigade? And the safety you know, for the community, that's going to take precedence, the data center, not out here in the community. That's something that we need to find out.
That should be in our zoning ordinance. They have to supply their own, they take care of their own catastrophes or emergencies on site. That should be part of our zoning language.
Good, Mike.
So Denise, we talked a little bit about this with the volunteer fire company. Part of the problem is, until we don't plan and actually know what we're going to be fighting, it's tough to say whether we have the actual equipment. We don't know if we're going to be fighting a one-story fire or is it going to be a 6-story building where you can ladder. We don't know what chemicals, what batteries. It's one of those, we've gone down that road, but there's just too much unknown that you actually have to plan to be able to do this.
Probably won't be able to fight it with water if it's electric.
They may have gas systems there to extinguish it, but again, you don't know. You're not going to know if they have a plan, and then you're too late.
Well, that's a good point. And getting this part of yours and yours, I have in some of my notes that I want to put in an ordinance that these, whoever's going to build this, which we're, 31 people aren't going to come up with enough money to build this, so we're still waiting for the big answer. If it's Talon, Amazon, whoever. Not that I'm aware of.
No, in the curative amendment, it names no one specific, it's a blanket term, data center, that's it. There's no, and it's a proposed data center.
This is for the Hollenbach one
So
specifically.
I work in contracting, and this should not be our responsibility to pay for this stuff. It should be put in the township, that before anything goes in the ground, any shovel or anything, in a certain radius of this, everybody's basement, everybody's well has to be done by a picked third-party person, and everybody gets a copy of it. Us, as residents, the township, and the people. We should not have to pay for something that 31 people want that we don't want to. And it's the same with our fire company. We don't have the equipment to do it. Why are we being forced to pay for something we don't want?
I want to ask a question about the water testing.
Okay.
Like you said, you friends know if you take your water up to the Kirby Health Center in Wilkes-Barre, they're going to test for things like, coliform sewage, that kind of stuff. They are not going to test for petroleum byproducts, plastics. Okay, that takes more in-depth testing. Do you friends know of some place that you could recommend that people go for the correct water testing?
What did you say?
Hawk Mountain.
Hawk Mountain. Yeah, Hawk Mountain. Yeah, so PFAS, what we've found is that you have to order a test kit. We actually have some.
I believe so, yeah.
Yeah, we can get back to you with the brand and the company, and I think you can apply to get a supply of them, and we can at least get a few for you guys. I don't know how many we
Why
have.
are a couple people saying Hawk Mountain? What are you talking?
That's a water testing lab.
They have a water lab in
I'm thinking birds. Sorry, when you say Hawk Mountain, I'm thinking birds.
Hawk Mountain is a water lab in Hazleton, but I don't think they do PFAS. They do some chemical contaminants, but I don't think they do PFAS.
Can you spell that P what?
PFAS, it's
PFAS.
polyfluoral something substance, and I really should know what it is.
They do FHA water testing, which is pretty extensive.
Yeah. We just sold our property, and through the federal, the Navy, they had to do extensive testing, and they had it done.
So PFAS stands for polyfluoral alkyl substances, and they are chemical compounds in plastics.
What about petroleum byproducts?
So plastics and petroleum are the same thing. Yeah, like plastic is made out of gas, oil and gas, like it's oil. You all know the facility they were trying to build in Sugarloaf, Altera? That was going to take plastic waste and burn off 80% of the stuff into the air and then take the rest and melt it into an oil. and try and like put it back into the, so, yeah, it's all connected.
I have a question.
Yeah.
In the curative amendment that was presented to our township, it said that they wanted to change zoning to industrial. Is every data center zoning industrial, or is it residential, or open space, or what is it?
So it varies from township to township, but I would think that like it would have to be an industrial zone, but that depends on your zoning ordinance. I mean, it would be stupid to say, well, we're going to put this in a residential zone with an exception. There has to be a certain percentage of industrial zone in every zoning. I think it's like 1% or something. So they can't, that's where that exclusionary zoning comes in. They can't exclude it. So that's why they would be creating an industrial district.
There's no percentages, I don't think, is there, John, for any of whether zoning, whether it's agricultural,
Okay.
rural, residential, commercial, industrial, there is not. And Linda, to address that for the data, for the curative amendment on there, that's where we first got the zoning, the ordinance that had been made, the new one, the revision, and that's where a lot of this picked up. They had, what was the SPS specific, or what do you just
The MPC or PFA.
No, the special exception.
Oh,
yes.
yeah.
That's where it was.
Conditional
On
use.
Rural, residential, and open space. That's how we picked it up. They were going to do the special exception for us, our residents. That's where we all grouped together and like, no, we can't let that happen. Wake up.
Right,
So.
I agree. Thank you, Denise.
Just flagging, it's 8:15 or so folks know what time it is.
Oh, sorry.
Okay, in one of your slides or whatever, you said if the ordinance doesn't suit our needs, that we have length of time to amend it. What do you believe is that length of time?
So,
This is after it's been voted on and the final ordinance language, we see it, we still don't like it.
so
How long do we have to amend it?
So for the zoning ordinance specifically, or any ordinance?
The specific.
So I believe, I don't think there's a time frame. So let's say zoning ordinance is passed and there's something in there you don't like. The process starts all over again to amend it. So they have to introduce it, public comment, all of that. So it just starts the clock all over again with an amendment. And then normal quality of life ordinances work the same way. You just start the clock all over again.
Doesn't stop it.
What's that?
Doesn't that?
Well, so
That
if
was
you-
where a curative amendment would come in, right? A curative amendment
Yeah.
would stop it.
Yeah, a curative amendment would stop it, but like the municipality can also say, you know what, we're gonna listen to you, we're just gonna amend this without the fight, then that would just be a normal zoning process. But then curative amendment process is a whole different ballgame, and that would, I guess, start the clock again for that too. Yeah.
Okay, I have another question. You said that you gave us the process that we need to be working through, and so far, we believe we're on track. We haven't, missed anything. And it also, in that discussion, you said appeals go to the zoning hearing board. Now, are you talking about our municipal zoning hearing board or the Luzerne County hearing board?
For municipal zoning ordinances, which is what you're doing, it goes to your township zoning board. If you don't have a township zoning board,
You hang on to that. We do have our own zoning hearing board. How effective is our own zoning hearing board in this situation? What are their powers of regulation?
well, I mean, they should be hearing the case for this is where zoning is not my forte, so this is where it gets muddy for me, but the zoning hearing board should be involved in this process. If they're not, that I would encourage you to ask them why they're not.
And like what? Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, I would ask because that's not my forte. And
In our case, a curative amendment has been proposed, so that goes to a hearing in front of the supervisors, not the zoning
right.
hearing.
So now for other zoning issues, your board should be involved. So you do definitely have a zoning hearing board though, right? Because in some cases, if municipalities don't have one, then the township supervisors or whatever your council is, they're like default also the zoning hearing board.
You have one right here?
Yes, my name is Adam Harmon, and I just wanted to draw up two different things. First of all, with air quality testing, the Department of Environmental Protection, they have bag houses which they could install. They should want to monitor this. They should want to get a baseline.
Yes.
That's the first thing. And the other thing is water testing. They have their own water department in
They
there.
do.
So there's no reason why they wouldn't test our water.
Yeah.
They would also want to get a baseline for that. Because everyone's doing all the testing.
Yeah, what I'll say is it's very good to badger them for those things, but in the case that you need it now, that's where we come in to try and help get that to happen. But if folks want to meet with your coordinator from DEP for environmental justice, I can get a meeting arranged, and then we can bring concerns and complaints to her and ask DEP questions about their process and be like, what are you going to do to stand up for the people here? So if folks are interested in that, again, I'm going to, poor Matt, I don't have any more cards, so. Grab Matt's card
I'll
and
pass
he'll
them
forward
to
it
her
me.
if I need to.
But
so.
if folks want to coordinate, residents of Luzerne County want to meet with the DEP, I can get that to happen.
Data centers, they must be industrial land for them to build on, is that correct?
I believe so, but again, zoning not my forte, so.
Because over in Salem Township, my friend got bought out, and his land is still residential, and they
That's
bought
the
them all out
rezoning that they're trying to do.
Yeah, they're trying to rezone, so.
after they bought it.
Yep.
Yeah. It would be like if you are in like a mixed use neighborhood and you wanted to open a pizza shop, but you bought an old house and it was zoned residential, you would go and try to get it rezoned commercial. Like it's the same process.
More pull once it's bought.
Yeah.
Yes.
Well, that's because then they have standing because it's their property.
And it would depend on what Salem Township's zoning regulations say about where data centers can be.
Yeah.
So,
Other questions? Checking on the time, we can do five more minutes or so.
Sandra Logic, Fairview Township. I just want to make mention a resource that was on TV. WDIA ran a program for an hour. I don't know if anybody saw it. It was on data centers. It was a round table with someone from a data center company. It had someone from Abington Township, how they fought to try and prevent data centers as well as their reporter. So it touched on many things that you've already spoke about, but they mentioned West Virginia and how that became like a center.
Virginia, not West Virginia.
Yes, Virginia, yes. So just offered that up.
Thank you so much. Jamie Walsh? Go for it.
I have a few things that I'd like to ask you.
Sure.
So I feel like we're not being told the whole truth because, you know, we're hearing the Minister for National Security. We're hearing that we have to beat China in the AI race. And from what I can find online, it shows that we have anywhere between 4,100 and 5,400 data centers, AI data centers in the United States. And China has anywhere between 381 and 449. My question to that is, are theirs just massive, that they don't need as many, or do you know that answer? This is something I'm looking into currently.
Yeah, I can speak partially to that. I don't know if I have a full answer for you, but I did look into China and like what they're doing. And part of it is they have a different AI model, DeepSeek. So it's also the game with corporations, right? So OpenAI is the one here who's the ones that's kind of exploded, and they need a certain type of chip, which is why NVIDIA is a company that's become like the most profitable company in history. It made the most money in billions ever last quarter for selling their chips. DeepSeek, which is China's, uses less power. And so it's an arms race of the tech getting better and better, which is why we don't want to build these data centers, because they're going to be obsolete and become stranded assets. Exactly.
Thank you. That's an excellent answer on that. I appreciate that. One of the other things that I heard at another township, they were talking about the decibels that they were going to allow in their township, and there was an engineer in there, and he goes, there's no reason to allow a louder decibel during the day versus the evening, because there are hospital-grade generators. They cost quite a bit more, and they can keep those decibels below 45, maybe even 40. Do you have any information on that?
You talk to the sound guy.
Yeah, so I was in contact with someone who deals with sound, like physics around sound and things. I don't have anything relevant to talk about those generators, which I will definitely talk to the contact that I have about that. The portable generators that they're using, obviously they're using them because they're cheap. So if we could get them to spend more and have the better ones, that's not great, but yeah.
So that actually goes back to other industries. So oil and gas companies could put filters on their facilities to make them less poisoning, but instead they try and get permits to allow them to emit more because it's cheaper for them to do so. It's sort of a similar thing here, where the generators are noisier because it's cheaper for them to do so. And so they would try and make the argument that you're excluding them by making it cost prohibitive or something. I don't know court stuff and how that would work as far as a lawsuit would go in that way, but you could require it and see what happens.
Thank you. One last, go ahead.
I was just going to add to, so these generators are temporary. So they do that when they don't want to pay to actually provide permanent power. Right. And the generators are much more polluting than normal power generation, but it's like a gray legislative area where, since they're temporary, they can get away with it because there's no end on how long is temporary. Is it 6 months? Is it 12 months? That's also where local ordinances could come into play, and you can say you can have a temporary generator, but temporary means 3 months, and then you have to get it out of there.
Okay, and then the last thing is just a statement. On HB 2151, I've received so many emails from DNL, which you all know I would if I had a vote. I am not the Energy Committee. Yeah. So I think your messaging from your organization should be better. This is for you. There's 26 people on the committee, on the Energy Committee. So sending an email to me is great, but I'm not going to see it. And the best thing is to kill it in committee, because if we can kill it in committee, it never sees the House floor. So messaging for you guys for future, target the 26 people that are in the Energy Committee instead of all 203 House members, and I think you're going to get better results in the future too for that.
So I did directly, you probably got our general blast that we sent out. I did directly email all of the co-sponsors of House Bill 2151 and the Energy Committee members separately. And I'll be doing that again because on Monday there's a hearing about it again in the Energy Committee. So that will be my life tomorrow, is writing the testimony for that bill again. But yeah, thank you for that. Basically, to House Bill 2151 is a bill in Harrisburg that would allow the local government services commission, I forget what the actual title, but it's within DCED, the Department of Community and Economic Development, to create a model zoning ordinance for data centers from the state. Our problem with that bill is that the state is courting developers, and then they're going to write the rule book for the data centers that they're courting seems like a conflict of interest. So and DCD could also just put out a model ordinance if it wanted to. It doesn't really need the legislature to tell it to. The previous bill was going to be put into the municipal planning code, which was also a problem because we don't want communities to think that they're obligated to pass that version, and then developers could sue if they veer from the state recommended ordinance.
It's a trap.
Yeah, so we're opposed to it because we think that municipalities should have a say-so in those kinds of decisions, point blank. If you want it here, great. If you don't want it here, great. You should make that decision, not the state, not us, not anyone else. So, but thank you for that.
We'll take two more.
If you did not get to sign in this book, your name, address, number of wells, and if you know the depths of them, would you raise your hand?
Everybody got it.
You guys are better than school students. Nope, you got one. It's easier to ask who didn't than to everybody. Who didn't?
Thank you, everybody.
Will you take it to the back, to Miss Molly, way in the back of the bus. Thank you.
Any other questions? We've got one more.
I said, just everyone who's interested wants to jot this information down I'm about to say. So, exclusionary zoning and fair share doctrine. Act 67 of 2000. You might want to do a little bit of research into that. It may be an argument for you guys here at Hollenbeck. It's Act 67 of 2000. It's in regard to exclusionary zoning and fair share doctrine. And just real quick, what that kind of means is if you have a neighboring community that allows for a certain industry, say in township, right? They've done more than their fair share, right?
Mm-hmm.
Well, you guys are in such close proximity, there could be an argument there that, not even an argument, it have to be a community agreement with Salem Township, that they're allowing for it, therefore Hollenbeck doesn't have to, right? Now that's something you gotta take up with your lawyer, but if you wanna self-educate before you talk to your lawyers, be better.
Thank
Yep.
you.
Thank you.
Thanks.
And then just as a reminder, we have free no data center signs that you can take one home if you want, on the table and on the way out by the door. They're all gone?
I've seen them driving in.
Everybody's not there? Okay, and then there's also fact sheets and handouts out there that you can grab a couple extra and share with folks who couldn't come tonight.
My cards are also, there's some up here and some back there. If you have questions for either of us specifically, you can just shoot me an email. I'll send the email off to either her or I will take care of it. But you guys really should be proud of yourselves for how you've come together so quickly and organized over this. So just give yourselves credit for what you're doing.
Yeah, thank you so much.
There's also a sheet to put your emails down. It's up front, but I can move it out to the back if you guys want to be on PSRPA's email list because they have a lot of really awesome resources. So if you guys want that, it's down there. There's pens and stuff. It might be easier if we keep the signs in one place and the emails in another. But thank you guys so much for coming out. Really appreciate it.
Thank you.